Hey guys, it's Zerk's What If, and welcome back to part 8 of What If Yuji was like Goro. Continuing where we left off, Yuji figured out he was only being a copy of Sukuna. Having his whole ideals be switched around, he would come up with a form that was effective only for him. After the fight with Kashimo, Sukuna would be inside of Yuji's head smiling ear to ear, unironically being nothing but proud at the boy. Yuji would tell himself that he knew what his next step was. He was going to help the Jujutsu sorcerers find Angel in order for them to unseal Gojo. But for them to do this, they would need to make a deal with him. So he was going to need to find them. Yuji was already tired from all of his fights, so he was going to lay low this time and attempt to find the students before anybody else could. Yuji would attempt to regroup with Uraume. As they were lingering around, waiting for Yuji to finish doing whatever he wanted, Sukuna told Uraume to lay back until Yuji seemed like he was at death's door. That's the only time they would have been able to jump in. Otherwise, leave Yuji alone and let him deal with his own problems. They would have been sitting back watching Yuji, as just then, Yuji would close in on Uraume. Yuji would tell Uraume that he's going to go find the other students and help them unseal Gojo Satoru. They would ask Yuji, isn't that a bad idea? Yuji would tell Uraume that it probably was a bad idea. However, he owes them, so he's going to help them this one time. Yuji would feel bad because he kind of had to kill Megami's sister. Sukuna would butt in and say that Yuji shouldn't feel bad at all, and that wasn't Megami's sister anymore. It was simply a leech from the past that Sukuna needed to get rid of. So he would tell Yuji not to worry about it and don't let it dawdle on his soul. Yuji would thank Sukuna and say that he knows. Yuji would then tell Uraume that they need to group with him. They were going to go together in order to find the students. Yuji was kind of tired from fighting this whole time, and that he kind of needs Uraume's help to go around. Uraume would say that they guessed they could help Yuji, having a nasty look on their face. Yuji would ask Uraume what the face was for, as Uraume would tell Yuji to mind his business. Sukuna would laugh and tell the two to cut it out. They both need to focus on their current objective. Yuji and Uraume would go around the colony searching for the students. It's just then, they would be confused. There would be numerous army trucks coming in and out of the colony. They would be jumping from roof to roof. Yuji would ask Uraume, do they know what those guys are here for? They would tell Yuji that they have no idea, and that it was probably something Kenjaku was planning. Yuji would tell Uraume that they need to pick up the pace then. They would jump around the city, but just then, Yuji would spot a group of sorcerers running. It would be them. He would see Megami, Nobara, Junpei, and one other sorcerer with a halo over their head, and some old guy. You can only assume that the one with the halo above their head was Angel, so he would be relieved that they had found them. The only thing now then was to help the group unseal Gojo Satoru. Yuji and Uraume would follow the group from afar, staying on top of the buildings, watching them. As Megami and the group would go into a building to hide themselves from the non-sorcerers, as Yuji would tell Uraume to follow him as they were going to go into the building and try to communicate with them. Uraume would make a face and ask do they really have to go. Sukuna would tell Uraume to suck it up and just go with Yuji, as they would let off a long sigh and say that only since Sukuna told them to go, they would go. Both Yuji and Uraume would head inside of the building, trying to find Megami and the others. As they would go throughout the building, Yuji would finally see the group, as they were sitting there waiting, discussing on what they were going to do next. Yuji would walk forward, as Megami would get on guard, along with everybody else. Megami would get ready and summon Shikigami, but Yuji would hold out his hands and ask Megami what the problem is. He's only here to help them, so they all need to calm down. Megami would be upset. He would scream at Yuji and say that he killed Sumiki, and that he has no right to be here with them. Yuji would get upset at Megami as well, saying that he would have died if he didn't defend himself in that moment. He had to summon Sukuna, otherwise he would have died, and then what? Megami would have sat there, stunned on what to say. He knew that Yuji was right. Yuji would continue to go on. He didn't mean to kill his sister, and it didn't matter in the first place. That wasn't his sister, not anymore at least. Whatever Kenjaku did to his sister before the culling games even started caused her to become the person that she was. She wasn't your sister from the second the culling games had started. You just can't accept the fact that your sister was no longer here. Megami would get even more pissed off and walk up to Yuji, butting heads with him. He would be angrily asking Yuji what did he say. Yuji would butt heads back with Megami and tell him not to be upset simply because he's weak and he couldn't do anything. Megami would laugh and say that was rich coming from someone who relies on nothing but Sukuna. Nobara and Junpei would try to calm Megami down, as Uraume would be laughing, hyping up Yuji. Yuji would tell Megami, if he recalls it, the last time him and Megami fought, Megami was severely outclassed by him, and that's before he unlocked any kind of technique. He would also tell Megumi if he didn't recall, the only reason Sukuna had to be summoned was because his sister, or whoever the hell it was, put a spear through his heart. He would then tell Megumi to remember that he came to him for help, and that Yuji's only trying to return the favor. But if this is how it's going to go, Yuji's not going to help them at all. Nobara would tell Yuji to not be rash and that they could still figure things out. She would tell Megumi to calm down and that they need Yuji in order to go about their next plans. Megumi would say that he doesn't need Yuji and that they could do everything on their own from now on. He would tell Nobara that they found Angel by themselves, and that's all they need because they have the back of the prison realm. They were going to free Gojo by themselves and take down Kenjaku by themselves. Yuji would then say that Kenjaku is his and his alone. He would tell the group that they could free Gojo all on their own. However, Kenjaku was his. Whatever Kenjaku was trying to do, whatever Kenjaku was planning, it didn't matter. Yuji was going to kill him. That blood was on Yuji's hands, no one else's. Yuji would tell the whole group that the last time he recalled, he told them not to get in his way, and he still stands by that. He would tell Megumi that if he intended on getting in his way, he'd better tell him right now. The tension in the room would then rise, as both Yuji and Uraume would be on guard, ready for their sorcerers to attack, as the sorcerers would be on guard as well, waiting for Yuji and Uraume to attack. Just then, Angel would speak up and ask everyone if they could please calm down. She would tell Megumi that it's okay that he's angry because his sister is dead, but at the same time, Yuji has a point. Whoever that was not Megumi's sister anymore, no matter how much Megumi wants to look at it. She was taken over by a sorcerer in the past, and there was nothing that Megumi could do. She attacked Yuji, and Yuji promptly defended himself. Even though Sukuna was summoned and his sister had fell because of it, it wasn't necessarily Yuji's fault. Nobody knew what was going on, so you can't be so quick to blame Yuji. Megumi would sit there, still being upset. He would then ask, why did Tsumiki have to die? Yuji would then butt in and say that it was nobody but Kenjaku's fault, so don't go trying to put the blame on him. Kenjaku was the one who started all of this, which is why I want to be the one to end it with Kenjaku. Megumi would stare at Yuji, realizing why he said Kenjaku's blood was on his hand. Yuji would then apologize, saying that he's sorry for getting upset, and he's sorry for killing his sister, but there was really nothing he could do. It was either Yuji was going to die or his sister was going to die. Either way, Yuji chose to live, and unfortunately his sister had died because of it. But Yuji isn't the one he should be shifting the blame on. It's Kenjaku. So instead of butting heads, they need to put their heads together. Megumi would ball his fist up and be upset, but he knew Yuji and Angel were right. Megumi would drop to his knees and apologize, saying that he's sorry for getting upset at Yuji. He just didn't know who else to take it out on. Yuji would say that it's okay, and that he kinda understands. Yuji would then tell Megumi to get up, and that they need to make their next move. He would tell everybody that after they unseal Gojo Satoru, he would no longer help them ever again. Yuji decided, when he killed Kenjaku, he was going to fulfill his promise he made to Sukuna. He was going to find the rest of his fingers, and then after everything was done with Sukuna, he was going to explore the world, getting as strong as he can, so he could come back to Japan and change how Jujutsu Society as itself works. He would say that he was going to be the quote-unquote next Sukuna, ruling with strength but not by fear. Uraume would laugh at the fact that Yuji believed that he was going to be the next Sukuna, but Sukuna would simply smile inside of Yuji's head. Just then, the small brief moment of happiness was interrupted as the military would rush into the room. However, Uraume would be the first one to act. Seeing as the military was about to shoot them all, they would use their curse technique, creating a frost calm, as it would flash over the military combatants, freezing all of them in an instant. Megumi would then look over at Uraume, saying that it was a good thing that they didn't engage with them, seeing as they could have instantly taken out all of them without Yuji even doing anything. Yuji would then walk over to one of the military combatants, who wasn't completely frozen over. He would then ask them what exactly are they doing here and who are they working for. Yuji would then transform himself into a more monstrous state. He would then ask the soldier again, who are you working for and why are you here? Everyone could feel the malice off of Yuji's transformation, with Megumi doubling down, saying that he's glad they didn't get into a fight. The soldier would then say that he doesn't know much and he's simply a grunt. However, he overheard higher-ups talking about how they were going to turn cursed energy into a renewable resource. Megumi would be confused, because he knows that the Jujutsu higher-ups are far too prideful to popularize sorcery. Megumi would then think to himself and realize that this was probably something Kenjaku had planned, if anything. He was probably baiting the soldiers in here to be slaughtered by cursed spirits in order to fill the colonies with even more cursed energy to complete the merger with Tengen. That would mean that the Culling Games themselves were hiding Kenjaku's true intentions altogether. Megumi would ask Yuji if he would help them save some of the soldiers, as they don't need the soldiers needlessly dying for Kenjaku's stupid plan. However, Angel would say that they refuse to drag Hana into unnecessary fighting, and say that the Tokyo colony already has enough cursed energy. Megumi would then say that they might need to spread out then. Yuji would then interrupt Megumi and say that he needs to focus on freeing Gojo Satoru. They have Angel and the back of the prison realm, so why are they dawdling? They need to go unseal Gojo Satoru, and Yuji will head on his way to go find Kenjaku. Him and Uraume would go and find Kenjaku and take care of him. While the group goes and unseals Gojo, everything will be fine. Sukuna would then butt in and tell Yuji that he's not prepared to take on Kenjaku at all. Yuji is strong, sure, but Kenjaku is on a whole nother level. He would tell Yuji that he shouldn't rely on Sukuna's power alone. Sukuna could easily kill Kenjaku, however, this is something that Yuji wants to do, so he needs to gain the strength to do so. He would then tell Uraume to prepare a bath for Yuji. Yuji would be confused, asking Sukuna what the bath was, as Sukuna would say it was simply a way to help him gain more control over his cursed energy. It would give him more access to Sukuna's techniques as well. Uraume would be concerned, asking Sukuna is that really something that he wanted. Sukuna would smile and say that he plans on staying here for a while, so he would tell Uraume not to worry and to just simply do as he says. He would then cut another deal with Yuji. He would tell Yuji to speak with him inside of his innate domain. As Yuji would sit to the side, he would then begin to close his eyes as he would enter Sukuna's innate domain. Him and Sukuna would begin to speak. Sukuna would tell Yuji that he very much enjoys being inside of Yuji's body. Even though he is only a host, he gets to gain control from time to time and do what he wants. And Yuji doesn't view him as some kind of monster, but simply a purpose. And Sukuna respects that. He also respects that Yuji is simply one that wants to gain strength. Yuji's whole purpose is to gain strength and change the way that Jujutsu society works as a whole. And Sukuna respects that the most out of everything. He would then tell Yuji that when he gets all 20 of Sukuna's fingers, he does not need to worry about transferring him to a different body. He enjoys staying inside of Yuji's body, and based off Yuji's biology, Yuji will probably live for another 300 years or so, seeing as he's half cursed right now. Yuji would be shocked hearing that. As long as Yuji is able to give Sukuna control from time to time, he wouldn't mind staying inside of Yuji's body. Yuji would ask Sukuna, is that really okay? He created a vow with Sukuna and said that he was going to give him a new body. Sukuna would then ask Yuji, what body could he actually provide for him even if he were to do it? Yuji would sit there and be dumbfounded because he finally realized, even if he got all 20 fingers, he doesn't believe that there will be one single person that will willingly allow Sukuna to dwell inside of them. Maybe Uraume, but they don't count. He would then ask Sukuna, is this really something that he wanted to do? Sukuna would say that he doesn't mind living for another 400 years with someone who has almost the same ideals as him. And again, as long as Yuji allows Sukuna to come out from time to time, everything should be alright. Yuji would say that he agrees. Sukuna would then tell Yuji that he was going to tell Uraume so they would understand, so he wouldn't have to break the news and they go back and forth like they usually do. Yuji would then say that he thanks Sukuna, but Sukuna would immediately cut him off, telling Yuji that he knows what he told him about that. Yuji would scratch his head and apologize, as he would leave Sukuna's innate domain, just to see everybody staring at him. They would ask Yuji what was going on, and what does Sukuna want with him. Yuji would tell them not to worry about anything, and that he was going to leave with Uraume a little bit, in order to take the bath like Sukuna told him to. Once Yuji was finished with the bath, he was going to go after Kenjaku. They would plan everything accordingly. The Jujutsu sorcerers were going to attempt to save as many soldiers as they could, in order to thwart Kenjaku's plans. They needed to delay them for as long as they could for Yuji to take the bath. It was going to take exactly a month for Yuji, so in the meantime, the Jujutsu sorcerers would train themselves, get as strong as they could within this month, while also unsealing Gojo Satoru in that time. They would denounce the plan to Gojo, as Gojo will primarily be used for cleanup for everything else, and Yuji would take on Kenjaku. As everything would be set up, some time would pass, and Uraume would have created the bath for Yuji. As Yuji would then ask Sukuna once again, is this sure this is something he wants to do? With Uraume asking the same thing. Uraume would ask Sukuna, wouldn't this bath technically suppress Sukuna even further into Yuji's consciousness? With Sukuna saying that yes, it probably will. However, since him and Yuji are technically coexisting, it gives Yuji more access to his own cursed energy, while at the same time, Yuji is still able to give me control from time to time, so everything will be okay. Neither of you need to worry. Uraume would take a deep breath and say that they hope that Sukuna is right. Yuji would then prepare himself as he would enter the bath and submerge himself completely. Sukuna would tell Yuji to simply concentrate and that Uraume would take care of the rest for him. As the month would pass, the Jujutsu sorcerers would do exactly as they planned. They would help as many soldiers as they could, as well as unsealing Gojo Satoru with the help of Angel. However, there was one backside to unsealing Gojo Satoru. He would be unsealed at the bottom of the Marina Trench, as he would get out and teleport straight to Kenjaku. Since there was no Sukuna, Gojo was free to do whatever he wanted. Gojo would stare down Kenjaku. He would then ask Kenjaku to give him one reason that he shouldn't kill him right here and now. Kenjaku would laugh, having a nervous sweat go down his face, saying that he didn't believe that Gojo was going to be able to get out of the unsealing. He was pretty sure he was going to die, but lo and behold, Gojo's the strongest for a reason. He would then tell Gojo that he has a bunch of plans in play, so that even if Kenjaku is to die right here, there are numerous sorcerers and cursed spirits that are still out in the world. The sorcerers will continue on Kenjaku's ideals. Gojo would then say that's still not a good enough of a reason for me not to kill you right here. Kenjaku would then tell Gojo that regardless of if he dies or not, their merger will still continue, as long as all those non-sorcerers that he sent inside of the colonies will continue to be killed by cursed spirits. More cursed energy will fill up the colonies, and once every single colony is filled with cursed energy, the merger will begin. And since Sukuna is still alive, the game will go on for as long as he lives. Gojo would then realize, well, if he's able to take out all the cursed spirits before they could generate enough energy in order to fill all of the colonies, then what will Kenjaku do? Gojo would then laugh and say that there's probably someone else who wants a hand at him anyway, so he'll allow him to live for now. He was going to go check on his students, and if anything happened to them, Kenjaku would be the first person to hear about it. Gojo would then say, why don't they set up an appointment? And if Kenjaku doesn't come, he'll just find him and kill him anyway. Kenjaku would let off a nervous laugh, realizing the predicament he was in exactly. Sukuna wasn't on his side, and neither was Yuji. Nothing was going the way that he wanted it to go anymore, and everything was falling apart. The plan that he made for thousands of years was crumbling at the seams, and all because Sukuna decided to change a new leaf. He would be confused. Why would these Sukuna want to team up with a brat like Yuji? It simply didn't make any sense to him at all. Nothing was making sense to Kenjaku anymore, so he would reluctantly agree with Gojo, saying that they can make a date. However, Gojo would then say that it probably won't be him there. There's someone else that wants your head. He would then make the date, saying that he was going to have his last day on Earth on December 24th, inside of Shinjuku, and if Kenjaku didn't show up, he was going to die regardless anyway, so he might as well make it worth his while. Kenjaku would laugh and ask Gojo does he really want to take the time and give Kenjaku more time to plan out his win. Gojo would confidently say that it doesn't matter what Kenjaku does actually. Even if Kenjaku somehow comes out on top with whoever's going to fight him, Gojo is still there, and he knows he'll kill him. Kenjaku couldn't say anything to that because he knew Gojo was right. He would then tell Kenjaku good luck and that he'll definitely be needing it. With Gojo teleporting away and Kenjaku dropping down, taking a deep breath, relieved that he gets some more time to live and plan some more things. As Gojo would then appear where his students were, they would be surprised to see him, as they would celebrate the unsealing of Gojo Satoru, with Gojo telling them that they need to get together and figure some things out. Gojo told the group that on the 24th of December, Kenjaku would be there at Shinjuku, and that he's betting everything on Yuji. The students would be surprised at the fact that Gojo was able to know what their plan was already, but Gojo would be confused on what plan they were talking about. He just wanted to have a bit of fun with Kenjaku. They would all look dumbfounded, realizing that Gojo is still Gojo. Gojo would then ask the group, where exactly is Yuji? As the group would then explain to Gojo that Yuji was taking something called a bath. Megumi would explain to Gojo that Sukuna told Yuji that it would make him stronger. Gojo would then laugh and say that Sukuna is helping out Yuji. Now isn't that a twist? Gojo didn't expect the King of Curses himself to help someone like Yuji out, or anyone at all in that matter. Gojo would then laugh and say that he knew Yuji was a weird case. It's a shame that he doesn't want to join Jujutsu High School. He would be an amazing student, seeing as he learned everything that he did on his own, with the help of Sukuna of course. As the month would pass, Yuji would finally re-emerge from the bath. Yuji could feel it. There was a ton of malice in his cursed energy before, but now it was on a whole different level. And on top of that, the control of his cursed energy was even more fine. Even without using his cursed energy, he could feel it. Everything was flowing through his body perfectly. It was like he was one with his own cursed energy. Uraume would then tell Yuji to put on some clothes, as they had prepared clothes for Yuji when he was able to re-emerge from the bath. Yuji would have the same get-up that Sukuna had, after Uraume prepared the bath for him as well. Yuji would then call out for Sukuna. Sukuna would simply say he was still there and not to worry. He knew everything was going to be fine. Yuji would then take a sigh of relief. Uraume would then butt in and say that while Yuji was inside of his bath, they found 3 more fingers for Yuji to ingest. However, they couldn't find the last one. Sukuna would tell Uraume that it was okay and that they would be able to make up the finger with Sukuna's mummified remains. Yuji would make a disgusted face, asking Sukuna does he really have to eat his mummified remains. Sukuna would tell Yuji stop being such a baby and that it's for him to get stronger. Yuji would let off a long sigh and say whatever. Yuji would then take the 3 fingers and eat them, with the fingers giving him even more cursed energy. As they would be preparing to head towards Sukuna's mummified remains, Yuji would begin to plan with Uraume. He would say that they need to regroup with the Jujutsu High students in order to discuss the rest of their plans with him. Now that Yuji was out of the bath, he was going to head straight towards Kenjaku, and he's pretty sure that they had unsealed Gojo Satoru. Uraume would confirm this, telling Yuji that they indeed did unseal Gojo Satoru. They could feel his cursed presence while they were tending to Yuji. Yuji would say, well, that's good, as Yuji would then consume the rest of Sukuna's mummified remains, equaling him out to 20 fingers. Yuji could then feel it, the peak of his power. He was in his perfect state now. He's pretty sure the only people that could stop him were Sukuna and Gojo Satoru. Anyone else, Yuji would easily be able to take them on. Just then, Yuji would make his way towards the Jujutsu High School students. As Yuji would be nearing them, they could feel it, the malice in his cursed energy and the amount of cursed energy that he had. It was almost 5 times what he had originally. What could that bath have possibly done for Yuji to do that? He would then walk over to the group with Uraume by his side, as Gojo would be there scanning Yuji up and down. Gojo would then tell Yuji that he's gotten pretty strong since the last time he saw him. Yuji would simply smile and say that he's been training a lot, so it paid off a bunch. Gojo would then have a serious look on his face. He would then ask Yuji, does he plan on taking on Kenjaku alone by himself? Yuji would say yes, he does, and that he doesn't want them to get in the way. Gojo would then smile and say good, because he has a planned date for both him and Kenjaku. Yuji would have a confused look on his face. He was going to go take on Kenjaku at this current moment in time. But Gojo would tell him that instead of that, their final battle would be on December 24th. Yuji would be confused as why Gojo would set the date so far away. It was only a little bit in the middle of November. Why so far away? He would then tell Yuji that he wants to train with him just a little bit. He wants to see just how strong he's gotten exactly, and see if he's actually ready to take on Kenjaku. Yuji would have a dumbfounded look on his face and ask Gojo is that really what he wanted to do. He planned the date that far just to see how strong Yuji was. Isn't that kind of stupid? Gojo would then tell Yuji that everything would be alright, because he's still around. He is the strongest after all. Sukuna would then generate a mouth on Yuji's cheek and begin to laugh. He would then tell Gojo that it's bold of him to say that while Sukuna is around. Gojo would then laugh and say that of course he could say that. He wouldn't want to compare himself to a dusty old man. Sukuna would get irritated and say that he wasn't going to let Gojo bother him with his childish remarks. Sukuna would tell Gojo that if it ever came down to it, Sukuna would be able to win against Gojo effortlessly, so he needn't get too cocky. Gojo would then tell Sukuna, after everything is said and done, why don't they go at it for a match and see exactly who's the strongest? Sukuna would laugh and say that he would love to do that. Yuji would tell both of them to cut it out and that they need to get serious. Gojo would then laugh and say that he's sorry about that, but for the next month, Yuji would be training with Gojo in order to fight his battle on the 24th of December. He was going to make sure Yuji was strong enough in order to defeat Kenjaku. He was going to push Yuji to new limits, and he wasn't going to hold back on Yuji at all, so he'd better be prepared. Yuji would smile and say that he was absolutely ready. He couldn't wait to kill Kenjaku after everything Kenjaku had done to him and everybody else. Kenjaku practically ruined his life and molded him into something he didn't even want to be. He was going to make sure Kenjaku paid the price. And I think that's where I'm going to end it off here. I want to thank you all for listening. The next part of this will be the final part. But after this, I'm going to make the what if Yuji was like Aizen part 1. So yeah, again, I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, peace.